It's not the start of the show until Dana TikTok Shives me. So, welcome to the show, everybody. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I was just, as I usually do, I was giving any potential last second stragglers a chance to submit final questions, and then tidying up my. So this is how neat I am. Okay, when the Ask Away Google form that I use to collect the patron and member questions is when the time is up and it's 6 p.m. Eastern time on show day and I'm no longer accepting questions, and I've collected all the questions. I do it right then. I take the form and I drag it from the folder that it's in into the archive folder, so that it doesn't, so that the folder where the current and upcoming Ask Away questionnaires are there. They're not. It's not all cluttered up. All the past shows are in their own separate archive folder, and I do it right then. It's usually the last thing I do before I click the go live button for these live streams, because I am a neat and tidy person. Which you can tell, actually. You can I forgot to close my closet door back there like I usually do. And you can see, you can just barely make it out in the background. But look how neat my closet is. Look there, you know what those, you see that white thing on the floor there? Right there. I'm pointing right at it now. On the floor, it's just inside the door of the closet. And it's on the floor. What it is, yes, Dana, that's why you have to wait. That's a pile of folded up, those are garment bags, laundry bags. And I use those to wash my graphic t-shirts. I put my graphic t-shirts in garment bags before I wash them, so that the graphics don't wear out as fast. What do you think? Is that too much? Is that neurotic? Is that is that Felix Unger behavior? Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. As always, I will be answering the questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members in the first segment of the show. So if you are with us live and you have anything you want to say to me, any question you want to ask, any super chat you perhaps wanted to generously offer in the live chat, please, if possible, hold off on those things that you want me to pay attention to or respond to until I get through the patron and member questions, because then and only then will I be paying full attention to the live chat. So once again, Dana says their neurotic behavior is folding the garment bags. I mean, I guess I should. Because I use them. Like, I use them every day when I'm at the end of when I'm about to take my shirt off and put it in the laundry basket. Like, I put it in a garment bag right then. So, I mean, I guess I could put the garment bags like in a drawer, but then I'd just be opening the drawer. You know what I mean? Like, it's more functional for me to just have them right there. Anyway, let's start with the patron and member questions, shall we? Cast just said he has OCD derangement syndrome. That's hilarious. It's one of the only, like, truly neurotic things about me. I think generally speaking, and Dana, I believe you will back me up on this because you've known me for a very long time. Generally speaking, I am not a neurotic person. Like, I'm a very laid back, non-neurotic, unbothered person in general. But I do have, little things. Everyone, just one or two little things that I've formulated a system, or I've grown accustomed to having them a certain way. And it's not like I can't function if they're not that way, but I just, this works for me. I like doing it this way. And that's one of those things. Anyway, let's now for real start answering these questions. This first one is from Connor Carlisle, the Cinephile. Have you noticed that there is a trend among media criticism, especially in fandom spaces, where people say something is bad writing when what they really mean is writing that isn't exactly what I wanted to happen, or writing that doesn't gel with me personally? Where do you think the distinction is? So I have noticed that. I certainly have noticed that in, let's say, modern, especially online media criticism. And I think a lot of that is just, it's because, and I don't mean to sound like, elitist about this or anything, but it's because a lot of people who publish review videos or reaction videos to media, or write, do podcasts or write blogs or whatever medium they're using, they're not only are they not trained writers and critics, but also they probably haven't been exposed to very much like actual professional, high quality media criticism. So they don't really know what a critic does. And they haven't learned to think about works in a critical sense that goes beyond. I mean, I always say it's all subjective anyway, but there's a difference between just having a reaction to something that's sort of instinctive and emotional and going, well, I didn't like that, versus being able to take that and then sort of express it in a critical way and articulate what it is you didn't like about it and why it didn't work for you or why it did work for you. Like there's a distinction there that a lot of people, I think, don't even attempt, because they've grown accustomed to watching people just react to stuff off the top of their head on YouTube, or they watch videos where their version of critique is just pointing out what they consider like inconsistencies or plot holes or things that are cringe or whatever, and they don't know what a critic actually is supposed to do. So I think that's one of the main reasons for that trend. Where do I think the distinction is? I mean, again, it's very subjective, but for me, when I am acting as a critic, like when I'm doing like a movie review, I'm probably going to do, I'm on Sunday, if all goes well, I'm going to see the new Star Wars movie, the Mandalorian movie. And I will, unless I just have no thoughts about it whatsoever, I will probably be recording a review video about the movie shortly thereafter. And when I do a review, especially of something new where I want to avoid spoilers, which is as close as I usually get to like a classic, like old style, newspaper, like published on Friday movie review type of acting as a movie critic. My rule is that I am to deal with what was on screen if it's a movie, or what was on the page if it's a book or whatever it is. You react and you respond and you critique and articulate your reaction to what was there in front of you that you watched, not what you wish was there or what you think should have been there but wasn't. That's not your job as a critic. Your job as a critic is not to pitch what you think in your imagination and your vanity would have been a better movie. Your job is to articulate what you thought about the movie you actually saw. And I think that is the distinction. A lot of people slip very easily into, well, here's what I would have done, as though that is a valid critique when it's not. Like that's just you expressing your preferences or you expressing your opinion or you presuming, and it is a big presumption, presuming that you could have done a better job, which is just like an incredibly arrogant thought to seriously have. Like we all think that sometimes, and it's fun to sort of throw that back and forth in conversation and say like, well, here's what I would have done. And like there's nothing wrong with it. But if you take it seriously and you present it like as your review of the movie and say, well, here's what they should have done, as though you have any basis to say this at all, as though there's any reason anybody, least of all yourself, should take you seriously, that's a different thing altogether. But that to me is the line. A critic, in my mind, a good critic, responds to what the piece actually is and what they think about it, what it made them feel, if it worked for them, if it didn't work for them. Whereas someone who is doing the kind of thing that you're describing, where they say they equate bad writing with, well, that's not what I would have done, or that's not what I wanted to happen. That's not critiquing. That's basically pitching a rewrite. And that to me, that is not a critic's job. A critic's job is to review what they watched in this case. The heated hockey hobbyist. So I know this probably isn't in your wheelhouse, but with your love of some sports, have you seen Heated Rivalry? It's an M on M or an M/M hockey sports rom-com series, and is pretty good overall in both the romance and sports aspect. How do you feel about other genres placing themselves into media types you enjoy, wrestling, sports, etc.? If you like rom-coms and or hockey, I definitely recommend it, but it's definitely romance-centric. Thoughts? I'm very familiar with it. I've enjoyed reading people's reactions to it online. It seems like it's a really popular show, and I'm glad that so many people seem to be enjoying it. I have not watched it. I am not, except when it's the Olympics, I'm not a huge hockey fan, and I'm not really a big romance fan. Like it has not actually been something that I've thought, oh, I have to watch that. I've been interested to see that it's apparently very popular and that people really like it. That's great. It's great that it's like a show about queer characters that has gotten a lot of positive attention and is apparently like a sexually explicit show about queer characters. So like that's great. I'm all for that. I think that's wonderful and positive, and but it's in terms of my own personal taste or my own personal like, oh man, I've got to see that. It hasn't pushed my buttons to the point where I'm like, I have to make room in my viewing schedule to see it. And as for how do you feel about other genres placing themselves into media types I enjoy? Um, I guess in the sense of like it's a rom-com about hockey. Like how would I feel about, you know, a rom-com about wrestling? I mean, it would depend on the genre and it would depend on how well it was done. Like just in theory, because I'm not really a rom-com fan in general, I wouldn't be very interested in a wrestling rom-com. But if it was like, a wrestling murder mystery or a wrestling action movie or a wrestling medical drama or a wrestling police pursuit or whatever, you know what I mean? Like I, I might be interested in that. I have enjoyed to varying degrees most of the movies set in the wrestling industry that have come out over the last 15 years or so. Haven't enjoyed all of them, but most of them have been at least pretty good. So I mean, I'm not against that, but it would really depend on what it is, and what it's trying to do. William Tucker, what's the finest non-Trek performance by a Trek performer, any series, any part? So this, because you're framing it so broadly, this is really easy, because if you're saying any performer or any series, any part, it's obviously Louise Fletcher as Nurse Ratched in the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. To me, I mean, if you're opening it up to everybody, not just series regulars, but recurring characters, guest stars, whatever, it's Louise Fletcher. And it's not, and for me personally, it's, you know, actually, no, there's one more. I just thought of it. It just hit my brain. If we're opening it up to everybody, even if you've only appeared in one Star Trek thing, there is one performance by an actor who has appeared in Star Trek that I would put ahead of Louise Fletcher. As great as Louise, and it's, and it's like the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's another actor in a movie, and the movie was directed by the same director who directed the film of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I'm sure a few people in the chat who are movie nerds like I am may have already guessed or would have guessed. The director is Milos Forman, and the movie is the 1985 or 84 film of Amadeus. And the actor is, of course, F. Murray Abraham, who played Salieri and also played Ruafo in Star Trek Insurrection. So, yeah, those are and I was thinking, I was like, it's got to be Louise Fletcher, right? And I mean, God, Louise Fletcher, Jesus Christ, just an amazing actor, and was so great as Kai Wynn in Deep Space Nine, and is absolutely all-time brilliant, like one of the great performances by any actor ever in a film as Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. She is just amazing. But if there's one Star Trek actor who tops her, I think it's F. Murray Abraham as Salieri, because I have always adored his performance as Salieri. And he is a Star Trek actor because he was in Insurrection. So I think I've got to go with F. Murray Abraham. But now I said Louise Fletcher, and it's not even close. Then I remembered F. Murray Abraham. So it's the two of them way, way, way up at the top. And then other actors from Star Trek who have also given brilliant performances and other stuff are a little further down the list, but those two are up, above the clouds all by themselves. Deminox. Lately, I felt disheartened trying to share my voice. I write anti-fascist punk, but produce it with AI because it's all I have access to. No band, no money, just a pen, paper, and my phone. I know AI is problematic and gives money to bad people, but so do YouTube, Patreon, Spotify, Meta, all of it. I don't love my options, but I feel it's my duty to try. How do we ethically spread our message when every major system is compromised? Well, I think the first step is to do what you're doing and just be open about it. You know, and I think if you are going to use AI in this way, I think your attitude is probably the best attitude to adopt for it, because I don't know about the rest of you, but one of my big problems with when I see people sharing like AI produced content online, I'm honestly not. I mean, the quality of it is usually pretty low because the capabilities of AI, um, you know music generating tools or image or video generating tools is still not, it's not nearly as high as the people who share it seem to think it is. But also but it's not just, it's the general low quality of it is kind of a turnoff. Um, and all of the ethical issues with AI just as a as it currently exists that you mentioned, that's all in there as well. But it's the fact that there's always this implied sort of, you know, isn't this awesome or isn't this better, or it's like they're not just showing you an AI thing that they made, they're sometimes directly but often indirectly telling you like, they're like they're giving you a sales pitch, like this is amazing and I love it and you should love it too. And there's just something like aggressive and really off-putting about that. And if you combine that with the fact that they're showing things that they seem really proud of that actually aren't that good in almost every case, and the ethical concerns about how it's made, in which you are right to point out, it's not, we talk a lot about how problematic AI is in that way, and we should. It doesn't invalidate it to say the rest of what you say. But yes, we live in a society where every system is ethically compromised. It's not unique to AI, but AI gets a lot of attention about it lately because AI is being pushed so incredibly hard by the people who are desperately trying to make money off of it. And it's being pushed, and being represented as being able to do things that it still can't do very well, at least not on a consistent basis. Um, but no, if you're going to, if you're going to use it in the way you're describing, I think the first step is what you're already doing, which is just be honest about it, be honest about what you're doing, be honest about how conflicted you are about it, and don't come across as though you're, an unpaid sales rep for AI, which is how a lot of people who share this sort of content on social media come across. Amelia C, to follow up on your video about Sand Superman, have you heard the theory that it was intended for the Superman that returned after the death of Superman to be said Sandy facsimile, just to be swept under the rug? I love that. Because of Marvel's Clone Saga happening around the same time and swaying things. I have not heard that. If that is in fact the case, and they did decide to abandon that storyline because of the Clone Saga, then that's, chalk one up for the Spidey Clone Saga, because that storyline gets a lot of, deserved ridicule for not being very good. But if it convinced the powers that be at DC not to do, Superman Returns, but actually, haha, it's Sandy Superman, then that's a good thing, because that would have been terrible. Number one, because at the time that they did the Death of Superman storyline, it had been 22 years since the introduction of Sandy Superman, and I think maybe he might have reappeared once or twice in the comics since then, but he was not like a major character. So it would have been a real, I can just imagine if I'd been because I was not, even with the Death of Superman at the time, I was not reading the Superman comics regularly at that time. I was just starting to regularly read the Batman comics, but I was not like reading Superman regularly. But I can just imagine how disappointing it would have been for me, and probably for a lot of other people, if they had said, hey, guess what the big twist is? Oh, well, you thought Superman was back, but it's not Superman. It's this kind of sort of clone of Superman from a mostly forgotten storyline from 20 years ago. Ha ha! Like, that would have been terrible. Which, I mean, and like, that's kind of what they did with the Spider clone. And that's kind of what happened. So yeah, I'm glad that I have never heard that, but I'm glad if that is the case that did not happen. General Contact Unit problem child, a guy called Andy Burnham is running in a by-election to become a Labor MP so he can then try to become prime minister. He is left of the others running for Labor leader, and but only marginally. Him taking over only marginally reduces the likelihood of 2029 reform government. Let's say it goes from 98% likelihood to 93% likelihood. What I've been wondering is that 5% enough to say it's unethical for the Green Party to run in that by-election and potentially prevent him from becoming an MP by splitting the left vote? That's kind of I mean, you're giving me math. you're giving me math, and it's breaking my brain. Is the 5%? So the Green Party runs and it takes his chances down from 98 to 93. I mean, look, I honestly feel less qualified to comment on this than I would if this were something happening here in the United States, because because even though, like, over there in the UK, you guys basically have a two-party system as well, with the Conservatives and the Labour Party. But also, you, because of the way your elections work and the way your parliamentary system is put together, minor parties like the Greens and Reform and others, it's easier for them to gain representation. Whereas here in the United States, like, it is a much more rigid two-party system where, like, if you're not a Republican or a Democrat, for all, even though legally it's completely fine, there's nothing to bar other parties from getting elected and holding office and having representation. But practically speaking, it's virtually impossible, especially at the federal level, at the national level. So, your system just doesn't work the same way that ours does. So, and I'm not familiar enough with it and experienced enough with it to really be able to offer any kind of confident opinion on this at all. So I honestly don't know if that extra if reducing the chances of this guy becoming prime minister by 5% would be worth it. Or I wish I could give you a better answer, but I honestly don't feel comfortable opining on it strongly one way or the other. Zulu Romeo, who wishes Australia should win Eurovision every year just to piss off the purists. Did you see the Eurovision Song Contest this year? And if so, what did you make of it? The discourse of late is how political it has tended to be for various reasons. Diplomatic jury voting for favored neighbors in the past, protest votes against warmongering nations, institutional corruption, which is what eventually put Terry Wogan off it in 2008, and today's specter of Israel public vote gamesmanship, which for me is really ruining the fun spirit of the show. Anyway, how about you? Eurovision is just not my thing, man. I was on a live stream with some friends several years ago where we were watching clips of Eurovision, like from the previous year or whatever the most recent one had been. And I found it so tedious that I just dipped out of the stream. I just left. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. So I didn't watch it this year, other than the few bits of it I saw on that live stream that I quit. I've never watched it. I have no intention of ever watching it. I'm sorry that the issues you describe are ruining it for you and for anybody else who enjoys it and is enjoying it less because of that. But it is so not my thing. So sorry. 2 questions in a row that I don't really have an answer for. Let's make it 3. The Brain, professional wrestling openly turns conflict into entertainment. Do you think social media and modern politics have started doing the same thing just without admitting it? Yes. I mean, and not recently. It has been like that for, 150 years, if not longer. I mean, the print media did that back in the 19th century. And then, it's been done on TV for years. It's just that with it happening in print media and on TV and throughout social media, now I think the effect of it is just much more amplified. And it's just a lot, it's a lot easier to find that kind of journalism and that kind of politics, and more difficult to find actual, more serious, thoughtful, informative, useful types of reporting. And, that the problem is worse but it's not a new problem. But yes, of course, it used to, they used to refer to it as thinking of politics like a horse race. And there's always been yellow journalism, and there's always been attack ads, and there's always been, the media trying to frame things as, A versus B, and frame things in terms of conflict, because that drives ratings and that gets people to pay attention, and it just also sort of causes things to become more lurid and sensationalized the longer things go on. So yeah, I mean, that definitely happens. The only thing I disagree with you in your question um, is the tense. You say have started, and I mean they started it a long time ago. It's just now it's worse than ever because of everything I said. But yes, I agree with the general premise. The Noam Chomsky, Steve, you famously hate all tabletop role playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. However, what if there were a TTRPG that is basically a pro wrestling career simulator? And what if the dice rolls didn't correspond to mechanics but narrative? Basically, it'd be a TTRPG doing what they do best, communal storytelling. We all know you love to act and improvise. This is the same thing. No, it's not. Why do there have to be dice involved? Why does there have to be a game mechanic? If you want to act and improvise, just start an improv troupe and improvise a scene. Like, are they throwing dice every time it comes to a creative, intersection at Second City or at the Groundlings? No, they're doing fucking improv. When we're recording our Ensign's Log podcast, which is improv, like, is Jason rolling fucking dice for narrative purposes? No. And Jason loves fucking role playing games. That's one of the areas that our interests diverge. Jason is much more, open to and enjoys role playing games like that. I have absolutely as you can tell, I have positive disdain for them. I don't begrudge anybody else enjoying them, but for me personally, I would rather lie down on a train track than play one for 5 minutes. It seems like the most boring waste of time I can imagine. But no, so no. No. It does not seem remotely interesting to me. Not at all. And the fact that it would be wrestling makes no difference. I don't need to roll fucking dice to decide which way a story goes. And neither do other people. Neither does an improv group. If you want to get together with a group of friends and tell a story, just fucking do it. Why do you need stats? Why do you need dice? Why do you need mechanics? Why do you need some outside force to decide what happens for you? Why don't you decide as the storyteller, as the performer, as the group of performers that are putting this scene together, putting this story? Isn't that the fun part? I don't understand the appeal. I find it incredibly boring and incredibly tedious. No. It doesn't, no. Thank you for asking. And I appreciate you, asking a question and being a supporter, but no. David Colby will save every one of us. Stand for every one of us. I was pitching an idea for a Star Trek show and said what it needs is a minor power ruled by a lunatic despot who's politically connected to a bigger power, Romulans say, so the Federation can't just phaser him. That way, the crew can constantly run into a fun Ming the Merciless type character. And someone said, oh, he could be Khan or Moriarty. And Steve, can we, is it legal to kill these people? No, but it should be. They should be murdered. Because here's what you did, right? You said, I mean, it's not new because you reference Ming the Merciless. It's the kind of villain that has been popping up in pulp sci-fi since forever. But you said, hey, let's take something that hasn't really been a part of Star Trek before and on a consistent basis. Let's import it into Star Trek and create something new, within Star Trek. A new situation, a new character, right? You wanted to add to it. And these dorks were like, why don't we make it this other guy? Shut the fuck up. Thanks for missing the complete fucking point. Let's make it Khan. What have they not told enough stories about Khan? Why don't we make it Moriarty? Shut the fuck up. How about you do something creative and make up a new character? Fuck. No, I'm completely on your side. I wish we could kill these people. I wish we, or maybe not kill them, just like cut them off from all access to social media. Just shun them from society. You know? Yeah, yeah. I'm completely on your side. Donovan S. Boyle, hiya, Steve. Wanted to ask, with all the grifters getting upset over Christopher Nolan's Odyssey film, what are your thoughts on artistic liberties on retellings of stories with a historical basis? I think the artists making those stories and telling those stories um, are entitled and should feel entitled to take whatever liberties they want. I think if you are telling a story, you should be allowed and you should feel as though you have the right to tell that story any fucking way you want. And if that aligns with history, if there is some historical basis to it, and it aligns with history the way you tell it, great. Like if that's important to you, if you choose to tell a story in a way that is historically accurate, fantastic, wonderful. If you choose to depart from that or ignore that or do something completely different, great. All that matters to me is how good the story is. And it is, I mean, it's a little dubious. And I know, I love that you call them grifters because that's all they are. They're just outrage merchants. They're just looking at, oh my God, have you seen the costumes? Those aren't historically accurate. Or, Lupita Nyong'o is going to be Helen of Troy. Well, that's not historically accurate, as though Helen of Troy is like a historical figure that we need to, as if that even matters. It wouldn't matter anyway. It wouldn't matter anyway. Um, you know, but yeah, the Odyssey is not history. The Odyssey is a work of fiction that has some real historical context around it, like that does make reference to things that more or less happened in history, so far as we know. But the story of the Odyssey is a work of fiction. It's a work of fantasy. So the idea of, well, if you're going to do the Odyssey, it needs to be historically accurate. Historically accurate to what? To the shit that didn't happen? Like it's an asinine criticism. And to me, a storyteller should be allowed to tell their story in whatever the hell way they want that they think is right for that story. And if they want it to be historically accurate, that should be their option. They should be able to choose to do that. And if they want it to depart from historicity, if there is any relevant historicity to the story, they should be allowed to do that too. Do I give a shit if the style of armor that Odysseus is wearing in the Odyssey movie is not historically accurate, or is not what people would have worn during the Trojan War? Like I could not fucking care less. I literally could not fucking care less. I want to see the movie and I hope it's a good movie. That's it. Right. So anyway, no, I think they should take whatever artistic liberties they want to take. And the movie will be judged on its quality, based on the finished product. Musical metallurgist, have you ever been to any metal concerts? If so, which band, which tour, what venue? How close to the stage were you able to get? Any plans to go to any metal shows this year? If so, which ones? Again, I have to give a disappointing answer. I've never been to any metal concerts. I've been to very few concerts, period. I'm not really a concert goer. I've been to a couple of festivals, like local sort of music festivals. Like they used to have a thing here in Hagerstown called the Western Maryland Blues Fest, which was kind of like an all-day thing with multiple stages, and there'd be different blues and sort of blues rock acts playing all day long, and it was great. I went to it for like 2 or 3 years, and then they stopped doing it, which was disappointing. But other than stuff like that, like I don't go to concerts. I don't think I've ever been to a concert other than something like that. So not only have I never been to a metal concert, I've never been to an anything concert for the most part. So I have no stories and I have no plans to go. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Best stressed, I was watching old vids in which you mentioned the Ferengi were originally intended to be the big bads for TNG. And I got to thinking, what do you think of the idea of switching the physical character design for the Ferengi and Cardassians? Evil reptilian super capitalists could be fun. The real Gordon Gecko. And the Ferengi's sort of sniveling sexism could also be interesting for the Nazi equivalents. The way they actually did it worked, of course, but it'd be an interesting switch. Um, it would. It would. And I mean, I think the Ferengi with the Cardassian character design, I think would, I mean, then the Ferengi, I think, would be more effective big bads, because I do think a lot of the problem with the Ferengi, especially initially, that caused the audience to not really take them seriously as threats, um, was the fact that they look the way they do and they act the way they do, and they're sort of cowering and cringy, and they're, you know, they cast like small actors to play them, and it was just difficult to take them seriously as a threat. Whereas if they were like, you know, powerful, imposing Cardassian looking guys that had the arch capitalist streak, it might have been easier to take them seriously. It would. It. I mean, it's pure. It's nothing but speculation, you know. And it's kind of hard to imagine in any detail, because it would have been. I think it would have been really different. Uh, but yeah, it could possibly have worked. And this it's an, yeah, as you say, it's an interesting thing to sort of imagine, you know. And it's an interesting question of like how much, when you're talking about fictional characters, how much does the visual impression determine, you know, like would that have been enough? Would changing the look of the Ferengi been enough to sort of sell them as serious villains, or was there something else more fundamental about them that required them to kind of go the direction they went? It's a really interesting question. Some random geek who was called Hitler and Stalin in the same day. True story. So someone came to one of my streams, twitch.tv/some random geek on Kick and YouTube, and said to me, "Hey, dude, not a hater, but you should stop enabling people that beg for money and you need to get a job." Me enabling my friends to what? Live? The job thing, I'm trying. But this random stranger from Twitter just came to my stream to tell me that God loves me and he loves me, and I should prioritize myself. To be continued, so I will reserve my comments until the second half. Some random geek who is still unemployed. Who do folks in this society, why do folks in this society think that if asking for money to live, we should be more suspicious of them than anything else? And if I prioritize myself, who will give money to Joanna, Phoenix, Naz, LQ, and Joey? Will others in your chat step up if I don't give money to all of them? Joanna needs $1,500 each month. Phoenix needs $1,500 each month. Naz and LQ need $1,000, and Joey $500. I gave $250 to Joey's niece so that they could maintain housing. Is it okay to just let the poor suffer? No, of course not. And obviously, the person who came into your chat and said that to you is someone that you don't need to waste 5 seconds of your life on. You know, if they come in, because first of all, it's your business. I mean, I've, you know, suggested things to you in the past, and I've also encouraged you to at least be willing to prioritize yourself. I don't think I've ever said you need to stop giving money to those people. I've just said, you know, it's okay to prioritize yourself. It's okay to put yourself first. And I mean, especially in a situation where you're between jobs at the moment. I mean, like, and the guy is saying like, well, you need to get a job, as though you don't fucking know that. You know, I've said to you, like, it's okay to prioritize yourself and to look after yourself before you look after other people, because if you don't look after yourself, then you're going to get to a point eventually where you can't look after the people that you want to look after. And then everybody's going to be in trouble. But ultimately, it's your life, it's your decisions. Whatever money you have, what you do with it is up to you. And it's no one else's place, especially to come onto your live stream and presume to tell you how you should be living your life or how you should be treating your friends. You know, the frustrating part is that you don't have the power to fix it. And I know that is frustrating. And it's frustrating in slightly different ways for me. And I'm sure it's frustrating for all of us. We are aware of problems larger than ourselves, problems that afflict people we care about, like your friends who are unable to make ends meet, who can't put food on the table or keep the lights on unless they get contributions from friends who are struggling with, having to constantly convince the government not to cut off their disability payments or their, their SNAP payments or whatever, form of social welfare they get, because in this country we punish people who are poor for no reason other than just the fact that they're poor, and we constantly force them to justify receiving, in almost all cases, less than the amount of money they actually need to live. And then when they give up and they get kicked off and they can't get back on, we have assholes like Trump crowing about it, saying we've cut 5 million people off of welfare, as though that's like anything to be proud of. And it's frustrating when you look at circumstances like that and you realize that you can't help everybody. You can't even help all of your friends that need help. And you can't just magically touch people's hearts with a wand and say, you help them, you help them, you help them, and have that happen. It's a really, really difficult situation. And there is no way out of it in the immediate future. I mean, you support much more dramatic change than I do, for reasons of practicality, but we both agree that there need to be drastic reforms to the way things are done. But neither one of us as individuals has the power to make those reforms happen, whatever we might think they are or what might think they should be. So for the moment, we're all just kind of stuck. And that sucks. And it certainly doesn't help our friends who are in more desperate need than we are, who we would very much like to help. Like, it's an impossible situation. And I understand why you're upset about it and why you're mad about it. I just hope that you don't allow people like that asshole from your live stream to get to you that much, because that guy's a prick and disingenuous. And, the whole bit at the end of like, well, and just remember, God loves you. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Coming in here with your pie. It's like, you should, don't give money to your friends, as though it's your fucking dad. Don't give money to your friends. Focus on getting a job. And just remember, God loves you. Thanks, Dad. Fuck off. Who asked you? I hope you don't let people like that bother you too much, because they deserve absolutely none of your attention and none of your time. Don Quixote, you've said many times that Star Trek writers and the execs that make the decisions shouldn't pander to the fans. Just for the sake of argument, didn't the fans cause NBC to give in and have a third season of Star Trek? Given your views, if you had been alive when that happened, would you have participated? Probably not. I mean, just being honest, probably not. I take a dim view of that sort of thing, and it is one of the, I guess it's sort of a contradiction, in that I am very grateful that Star Trek did live on and didn't become just, those 2 seasons of the original series. And that was, I mean, at least that 3rd season was because of, the fans writing letters to the network and saying, hey, we want this show. That got him 1 more year. But no, if I had been living back then, I don't think I would have participated. Just like I haven't really participated in similar, in similar efforts, in the modern era. Like, as much as I loved Star Trek Prodigy, and I love Star Trek Prodigy, but like when Star Trek Prodigy came out on Netflix, there were, Star Trek fans that were like, okay, now make sure that you stream the episodes like all the time. And don't just watch it once, watch them like over and over again to get the streaming numbers up. And I'm just not going to do that. I'm just not going to do that. I don't work for Paramount. And as much as I love the show, and as much as I wish the people who make the show the best and hope that it is successful so that they get to make more, I mean, the show is either going to make it or it's not. Like, I don't feel like it's useful to try and artificially prop it up. If the show's going to make it, it's going to make it. If the show's not going to make it, it's not going to make it. And that happens, and it sucks. And it doesn't always happen for legitimate reasons, as we can tell with, the Stephen Colbert situation. His show was not canceled for any legitimate reason, but sometimes shit happens and a show just fails because it doesn't meet whatever benchmarks were set for it. And I don't see the point as a member of the audience of trying to say like, let's get together and convince them that the show is worth saving. Because like, if there was that big of an audience to start with, we wouldn't have to do that. Sometimes there's just, the show just doesn't find an audience, and that's unfortunate if it's a show that you like and if it's a show that's really good. But that's, that is the nature of the beast sometimes. So no, I mean, it may be hypocritical of me to say that, given that I have enjoyed so much of the Star Trek that came after the third season of Star Trek, but no, I would not have participated. Don Quixote, hi Steve. I brought up an older Jerry O'Connell show last time, so this time I'll ask, did you watch Sliders? I have to agree with the popular consensus that the stories went downhill in season 3 after Fox execs started meddling. Some are calling for a reboot, but going by most recent reboots, it's not a good idea. Your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I don't know about a reboot. Like, I mean, I guess they're rebooting everything else, so this doesn't really matter. But like, Sliders wasn't really all that popular to begin with. So like, why would anybody think a reboot would be, something worth pouring resources into? But no, I watched it religiously the first season. I watched it less so the second season, and I think maybe by season 3 I had already given up on it. I liked the idea of it. I liked Jerry O'Connell. I liked John Rhys Davies. I liked the cast. I thought maybe a few too many characters. I think having like 4 characters do the sliding every week was a little much. Maybe if it had just been 1 or 2 characters instead of 4, I might have been, I might have enjoyed it a little more. But I love the idea of it, the fact that they're going from parallel universe to universe, and like the timer is broken, so they can't control how long they stay in which universe or which universe they go back to. And it's a little bit of Quantum Leap and a little bit of like time tunnel, where they're stuck in a place for a certain period of time that they can't really control, and they have to be at a certain place at a certain time to get back or to get to the next parallel dimension, which may or may not be their home universe. Like, there's all kinds of interesting sort of classic TV sci-fi tropes attached to it. But yeah, it never, like I said, after about season 2, I kind of lost interest in it. And I never watched when it moved over to the Sci-Fi Channel and they did a couple more seasons. I just never watched it after that. So I remember it as like a show with a really interesting idea and like a likable cast, but it never really hooked me. It never sank its hooks into me, let's say. Rusty Ronan, yo, Steve, I can't stand Forrest Gump. Every time I tell someone I can't stand Forrest Gump, they just look at me with pity and disdain. Is there something wrong with me, Steve? Life is not a box of chocolates. It's more like a piñata. No, there's nothing wrong with you. Lots of people look, Forrest Gump is a populist movie. Forrest Gump is a movie that a lot of just sort of general everyday people love. And it's an easy movie to love because it tugs at your heartstrings, and it has these big sweeping emotional moments, and it has a beautiful musical score, and it has a cast full of great actors, and it looks great, and it has a fun gimmick where they use special effects to insert him into historical events. Like, there's all kinds of stuff in the movie and innate to the movie that appeal to the masses. But there have always been people since the very moment that the movie opened in 1994 who thought it was bullshit. And my very best friend in the whole world, Jason Harding, is one of those people. And I love him and respect him. And my own feelings about Forrest Gump have gone through many ups and downs. I liked it when it first came out. I grew to not like it later on. And then I watched it again about 5 years ago when Jason and I reviewed it for late seating. And I was kind of surprised to find that I really liked it. I don't know what happened, but I watched it I watched it that time, and I thought, this is working for me. I don't know what to say. It's working for me. But no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you for not liking it. I'm sure there are movies that you like that other people don't like. Does that bother you? It shouldn't, there when Forrest Gump won Best Picture at the Oscars instead of Pulp Fiction, there were a lot of people, a lot of like movie people who were like, yeah, okay, we know. Like it was the popular pick, it was the crowd pleasing pick, it was the big blockbuster movie, but there were plenty of people who were like, no, this ain't it. So if you have a negative opinion about Forrest Gump, you are in good company, my friend. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with not liking that or any movie for that matter. Cast Iron Chaos. And so this week we've seen Boss Twump commit the most blatantly corrupt and criminal theft of government funds in our country's history until the next one. It's not much of a condolence, but at least we can be reasonably certain the January 6 traders won't get a dime of it. He'll rip them off yet again and steal it all for himself. Yeah, I think Colbert made a joke to that effect in one of his shows, in one of his final shows this week. Like, don't if you're worried that the January 6 insurrectionists are going to get money from this, don't worry. Trump's taking this. Trump's taking it all. He's not going to give any of it to them. But no, it's shockingly corrupt. It's Trump sued his own government, which is populated by people he appointed who are completely on his side, who are his lackeys. And then Trump and his lackeys settled the lawsuit that he had essentially brought against himself and decided to give himself, like $1 billion. It's shamelessly, nakedly corrupt. But yes, the one bright side is all of the people that folks are worried will get money from it are probably not going to get very much money from it because Trump's keeping that shit. A big fat jerk. What are your favorite Star Trek intakes that you want to share with your viewers? And there's a YouTube channel called Ryan's Edits that does Star Trek intakes, which is the opposite of outtakes. And what he does is he takes bloopers that have been released on, DVDs and stuff, and he edits the blooper back into the full scene that it came from. So you see the scene play out, but the blooper is in it instead of the good take. And some of them are really funny, and he's done a bunch of them from all Star Trek eras and all Star Trek shows, right? I think my favorite is the one where it's Booby Trap. It's the first Geordi Leia Brahms holodeck episode. And it's the scene where Geordi is kind of whining to Guinan about how he can, he's great with computers, he's great with, engines, but he gets on the holodeck, goes on a date with a girl like, with a girl like Christy, and he can't make anything happen. And he's talking about and it's the episode where he has the Leah Brahms holodeck program, and the outtake is Whoopi Goldberg is Guinan going, "Have you ever considered trying to fuck the program?" and she says it with such a beautiful straight face, and it's just that's probably my favorite. And of course, and it's edited back into the scene, so Geordi doesn't laugh, he doesn't react to it, he just says whatever his next line was, and that's probably my favorite one. An enemy spy. Steve, your love of baseball is well documented, and I've heard it said that the sign of any true baseball fan is the ability to explain the infield fly rule, a thing about which I know nothing as I root for the Mariners and therefore don't enjoy baseball. I know they were good last year, but that's just the rise to make the inevitable fall hit even harder. The Mariners will never win. My condolences, my friend. Please explain it in excruciating and mind-numbing detail to an audience that doesn't care as any true fan would. You cannot explain the infield fly rule in anything other than excruciating detail, because that is the nature of the infield fly rule. So the way the infield fly rule works is this. When there are less than 2 outs, and there are runners on first base and second base, and therefore there is a force out possible at third. If a ball is hit that is a pop fly that does not leave the infield, in other words, it stays within the inner part of the field of play, the umpire can call that ball automatically out, whether a fielder catches it or not. So, but all those, it can't be the third out. It has to be less than 2 outs and 2 runners on base on first and second. That is the only specific circumstance where the infield fly rule is in effect. And the reason that they do that is in order to prevent a fielder from the team on defense from forcing the offense into an easy double or even triple play. Because what if there is no, and by the way, I'm fine. I don't really like the infield fly rule, but I understand the reasoning behind it. If there is no infield fly rule, let's say there's no infield fly rule and there are no outs and there is a runner on first and second, and then a batter comes up and hits a pop fly and it could easily be caught, but the fielder who gets under it does not catch it and purposely allows it to hit the ground. Then he can immediately pick that ball up, throw it to third base where a runner has to advance, get that runner out. The third baseman can then throw that ball to second base, get the advancing runner out there. That's 2 outs. And then if they're fast enough, they can probably throw it to first base and get the advancing runner or the batter who's running to first base out there. And there you have a triple play. Boom, inning over. All because the fielder intentionally chose not to make the out that he easily could have, but to let it drop so that he could then take the force outs at third, second, and first base. And there is a school of thought that says that is not fair. That it's not fair that there could be a situation where a fielder would choose not to catch a pop fly and record a single out, but would instead let it drop and then try to get a double or triple play because of the existing force outs, because of the runners and having to advance. I personally think that sort of thing is completely within the spirit of baseball. And I don't think the infield fly rule is necessary to prevent that situation. I think that kind of situation is just part of baseball, and I'm completely okay with it. But other people disagree, hence the infield fly rule. So there you go. That's what it means. That's when it happens. And the complexity of it that hopefully comes across in my explanation is why it is often used as the example of, show you're a true baseball fan and describe the infield fly rule. Isaiah, last week I got to witness something phenomenal. Jan de Bont's 1996 Twister is one of my all-time favorite movies. For a popcorn movie, it's really good. Really, really good. I even think, like many people, it got me into meteorology. I have to share my experience with everyone in the AA. And Isaiah's next question says, not a question, just wanted to share my experience. And then he sent me a link, and the link was to this picture, which is the storm chasing truck from Twister that Isaiah got to take a photograph of. Is that the actual truck, or is that just like a recreation of it? I don't know. But anyway, there you go. Pretty cool. If you're a fan of Twister, I imagine that was a pretty big deal. So good for you. Agent Meister, who has ears like a cat and eyes like a rodent. Peldor Joy, Steve, I read once that Superman is the American dream, while Batman is the American truth. Do you think this would apply to the differences between Picard and Cisco? Picard does everything he can to uphold the ideals of the Federation and seldom sways from that path, whereas Cisco gets his hands dirtier than some while on the front line of the Dominion War just to keep the Federation alive. To paraphrase Nick Fury, Cisco takes the world as it is, not as he'd like it to be. I think that's generally fair. Yeah, I think Picard represents our ideals. Picard represents, ethics and morals and philosophy and sort of the elevated way of approaching life, which is important. Like, you need that. I think you need to have a Picard side to your personality. You need to be able to view things in poetic terms and philosophical terms, right? You need to be diplomatic, you need to be thoughtful. And Cisco is the practical side. Cisco is, what do we have to do? What do we need to accomplish in order for things to get better? And I think there's a very urgent need for there to be a Cisco side to our personality as well. So I do think that, that's a fair dichotomy. And it's a fair way of, in a very, very general sense, it's a fair way of describing those characters, because it's not a complete, it's not a clean break. Like, Picard does also have a practical side, and Cisco is not completely without principles. He is a very principled character. and is also completely capable of viewing things and expressing things in a philosophical way. But in general, yeah, Picard is the sort of soaring rhetorical one, and Cisco is the let's get down in the ground and get our hands dirty and do what needs to be done kind of guy. I think that's a fair way of looking at it. The Grumpy Monkey, fist my bump. It depends on what bump you're talking about, buddy. How now, Steve? I wanted you to know that some wag spray painted Trump's face on a lamppost in my city with the phrase "spit here" written under it. It made me smile when I saw it first, and I make sure to pass it when I go for my walk after work. I also comply with the aforementioned caption, and it helped the long winter evenings to just fly by. I'll gladly fly you to my country if you want to give it a go. Also, have you seen Project Hail Mary? My God, what a film. I was punching the air by the end. I have not seen it. I am going to just wait until it hits streaming at this point to see it. I'm expecting it to be good. I've heard, incredible things about it, both from, just ordinary folks who have seen it and loved it, and also from, professional critics who have mostly given it very good reviews. I'm really looking forward to watching it. I haven't seen it yet, but I am really looking forward to seeing it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm hoping that I will enjoy it that much. And Darth, hey, Captain, had another question, kept remembering at the start of work and forgetting it when I got home. So anyway, here's something random that popped into my head on the train ride home. I have no basis for this, but it feels like there are fewer wrestlers with ring names. Am I imagining things? Yes and no. I think there are fewer wrestlers with like exotic, outlandish ring names. Like if you think back to wrestlers who had sort of obvious, gimmicky ring names in generations past, like the Sheik or Dick the Bruiser or the Destroyer, Mr. Wrestling, or even going way back to like in like the 19 teens and 1920s, the Masked Marvel. Like there are fewer wrestlers, at least in North America. No, not even North America. In the United States, there are fewer wrestlers like that. There's still plenty of wrestlers with, obvious ring names in Mexico and even in Japan. But in the United States, but there are still wrestlers. They still have a lot of wrestlers that have ring names in the sense that it's not their actual name. It's just not obviously a character name, like Seth Rollins. It sounds like that could be somebody's name, right? That's not his name. That's not his real name, but that's the name he uses in WWE and even in AEW and on the independents. There are a lot of wrestlers who wrestle under what names that sound like they could be a person's actual name. They're not like obvious cartoony names like Hulk Hogan. Like that's not his name. His parents didn't name him Hulk Hogan, but Seth Rollins, right? What's another one? I just completely blanked. Like, Liv Morgan, right? Liv Morgan. Great wrestler. One of my favorite wrestlers at the moment. Liv Morgan. That sounds like that could be her name, right? Liv. It could be short for Olivia or something. Liv Morgan. Not her name. Not even close to her real name. Like her real name is completely different than that. So they have ring names, but they often aren't obvious ring names. So yeah, you're kind of right and kind of wrong. There aren't as many like gimmicky ring names, but they still exist and are still incredibly prevalent. MW Ridra will survive. Hey, Steve, an update on my quest to avoid diabetes. I've lost 11 pounds since cutting carbs 3 weeks ago and aim to lose 70 more. 1.5 inches off my waist so far. My favorite low-carb dish has been salmon grilled in garlic butter on a spinach salad with fresh feta, tomato, cucumber, sunflower seeds, and a homemade sugar-free Dijon dressing. Tomatoes aren't low carb, but a little doesn't hurt. Just wish salmon was cheaper. Do you like seafood at all, Steve? If so, what's your favorite seafood meal? I'm not a huge fan of tomato, so I would leave that out, but everything else you described there sounds absolutely heavenly. Oh, God. I love seafood. No, I'm from Maryland. Like, we love seafood, and not just crabs, although obviously crabs are a big part of the sort of stereotypical state diet. No, I love seafood. I love salmon's one of my favorites too. I love salmon. I love a good like blackened tuna steak. Obviously crabs, crab cakes, shrimp. Um, what else? Catfish. I grew up right next to the Potomac River, so catfish is big around here. Um, and also on the weekends, on Saturday, because Saturday is my cheat day where I don't eat vegetarian. During the week, I eat vegetarian, but on Saturday I eat meat, and I've fallen into the habit over the last few months of getting sushi for lunch, um, and the sushi plate that I usually get for lunch has, I think for the sashimi, it's I'm pretty sure it's salmon. It might be tuna. It's hard to tell sometimes. But anyway, yeah. So no, I love seafood. Seafood's great. Um, and yeah, your favorite low carb dish sounds pretty goddamn good to me. None ya business. Was there a movie you saw in the theater that turned out to be way better than you expected? I don't know what you have done recently to be this lucid and direct and to the point, but keep doing it, buddy. Good for you. Um, Was there a movie you saw in the theater that turned out to be way better than you expect? Yeah, that's happened a few times. I'll give you two examples just from the superhero genre. The first Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was way better than I thought it would be, because that Spider-Man movie had been in development hell for like 10 or 15 years at least at that point. And, going into it, I wasn't like necessarily expecting it to be terrible, but I had no idea what I was in for. And what I saw was one of the best superhero movies I had ever seen. So I was not ready for that. I was like, holy shit, that's way better than I thought it would be. And the other example, honestly, is The Dark Knight, because I was not a big fan of Batman Begins. I mean, it had its moments, but overall, I thought Batman Begins was not a good movie. I still don't like it. But The Dark Knight just absolutely blew me away. So I went into that thinking, well, it's Batman. I'm a Batman fan. I'll go see the new Batman movie. But I really was not a big fan of Batman Begins. And then The Dark Knight was, and still is, one of the best Batman movies, or one of the best superhero movies, period, that I've ever seen. So yeah, those are just two examples from the superhero genre of movies that I went to see in the theater, and they were way better than I expected. This is, I guess, cast iron cast. I post you submitted it twice, and this version has more details, I guess, settling for 1.7 billion of our tax. So that's my fault. I should have taken out the original version and just answered that one. My bad. I was an inattentive host, but I answered it already. Jim P. Hi, Steve. Was going to argue with you about term limits, but there's not much point. So I'll stick with something simpler. Are you going to see the Mandalorian and Grogu movie? Saw it last night. Had a lot of fun. I'm sure from a technical perspective, it wasn't great, but we really enjoyed it. Have a nice show. Yes, I am going to see Mandalorian and Grogu on Sunday. I thought about seeing it today, but I had what will hopefully, knock on wood, be my last dentist appointment until my scheduled checkup in October today. I've had, if you paid any attention to my stuff lately, you might know I've had a fucking bunch of dentist appointments over the last few months, because I had a broken tooth that turned out to be a wisdom tooth that I had to get extracted. So then I had to go for a follow-up to that. And then today I had to get some cavities filled. So that was this morning. And after I got out of that, I thought about going to see Mandalorian, but the next available showtime would have let me out somewhere between quarter to 5 and sometime after 5, and this starts at 6, and I just didn't want to. I thought, yeah, I'll go see it another day. I didn't want to be too rushed. But I did get advance tickets, and I am going to see it Sunday morning. So I'm really looking forward to it. I hope it's good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Kara the Tolkien nerd. Hi, Steve. I've been seeing a lot of references to key jangling regarding movies and TV series. Could you explain what the hell this is? Because I'm very confused. Kara, P.S. I think I asked you about member berries already. I believe you did. So, key jangling basically refers to anything that a movie does to obviously pander to an audience and get their attention. Um, I have used it in the past, and a lot of other people have as well, to refer to like when a movie or a TV series, like a movie that's part of like a franchise, trots out a really popular legacy character or actor, for a cameo, or does like a really obvious reference for nostalgia's sake, to just really to try and hit the audience in the nostalgia and be like, remember this? Huh? Don't you like that? To try and sort of extract their attention and extract their appreciation. And it's generally regarded as a cheap gimmick and just a really crude, artless way to sort of win an audience over. And it's kind of like when you want to get a baby's attention and you take your keys and you shake your keys, and they respond to the noise. You want to get the baby's attention. You're at the portrait studio. Okay, let's say it's 30 years ago, and you're at Sears to get your baby's portrait taken, and they're set up on the little platform, the little podium there, and the photographer's trying to get him to look at the camera, and they're not looking at the camera, and either you or the photographer will say, hey, look here, look here, look here, look here, and the baby will look at the shaking keys because of the tinkling sound and the motion, and that's what a movie is doing or a TV show is doing when they're like, look kids, it's Luke Skywalker. Look everybody, it's Luke Skywalker. What's he doing in The Mandalorian? So that's what they mean by key jangling. Simon Moody, with Colbert now gone, the idea for this question popped up. If you had his level of media exposure just long enough to make one point or argument to inform, energize, or open people's eyes, what would it be? Other than to not make TV shows using warmed up leftovers of older shows. I think it would just be pay attention. Pay attention and be involved. And that can mean in a political sense, in a social sense. Just don't act like the rest of the world has nothing to do with you, because I feel very strongly that one of the main reasons why someone like Trump and a political movement like the one that Trump is the figurehead of was able to take such power in the United States within a relatively short period of time is that so many people just stopped paying attention, just assumed that everything was okay and everything was going to continue being okay. And they just kind of stopped paying attention. They didn't watch the news. They didn't worry about voting. They didn't worry about donating to political campaigns. They didn't pay much attention to, cultural stuff. They just they worried about their own shit, and they didn't really think that they had any responsibility to the larger culture, to the larger society. And it wasn't done out of malice on their part. It was done out of a misinformed sense of this is good. This is fine. I don't need to pay attention to this. This is okay. And I think a lot of the problems we are experiencing now are because of that, because we collectively just took our hand off the wheel and now look who's driving. So my message would be pay attention. Be involved, be engaged, take ownership of the direction of your culture and your country. And don't ever think that you don't have to fight for your ideals or for what's right or for the rights of others. You do. There's never a point where the fight is over. There's never a point where the problem is solved, because it can always come back. And we all have to be vigilant. We all have to pay attention and participate in various ways, whether that means social activism, whether that means getting involved in your own community, whether that means electoral politics and just voting every time, for every primary and every general election and every local election, or whether it means, if you have a YouTube channel or a social media following or a podcast or whatever, using your voice, using your platform. Just pay attention and be involved. That would be my message. Dana, hi, Steve. Happy Friday. I still have 2 days left at school, but they're just planning. Plus, I've finished all my grading. Yay! I've been pondering the relationship between wealth and assholery. Basically, why rich people are such assholes. I think it's because in order to get rich, you got to be the kind of person who's willing to exploit others. Then, once you're rich, that power provides the opportunity to be even more of an asshole. And those who inherit it are trained from birth. Thoughts? I mean, I think that's probably the case for a lot of people, but I also think there's another element, which is that kind of wealth separates you from the reality that most other people live in. If you get to be so rich that you can essentially do whatever you want and go wherever you want to go and have anything you might want to have at any time, like you are not living the same kind of life that almost everybody else on earth is living. And I think over time that has an effect. I think that can sap your empathy. I think that can completely warp your priorities and your sense of reality. You are literally existing in a different world than most other people. And therefore, the problems and concerns and rights and needs of those other people will become less and less and less important to you. If they were ever important to you to begin with, which they may not have been, but even if they were, you have become so separated and so isolated from the real world, from the world outside your wealth, that it doesn't even seem real to you anymore. Like you don't have to worry about that. You know, you don't have to deal with those problems. You don't have those anxieties. You don't even remember what those anxieties feel like if you ever knew what they felt like. So I think that's part of it too. I do think what you're saying is correct, that to attain like really titanic wealth, like billions and billions of dollars worth of wealth. Yes, I do think you're probably someone who is willing to do unscrupulous things, who is willing to turn a blind eye to, exploitation, or I mean even like willfully actively engage in exploitation. Like that's all part of it. But I think also that separating quality that extreme wealth has, where it sets you apart from other people. I think and causes you to view other people in a way that as less than, or as less important than you and your interests. I think that's a big part of it too. Caitlin L, who is at least submitting with 40 minutes to spare instead of 10. Continuing my discussion of show not tell, I've recently been rewatching Mad Men, and it's so refreshing to get away from all the attention cues. POV shots are at a natural length with no music cue or special or sound effect to draw the viewer's attention. Lots of discussions happen off screen, and you have to infer from the aftermath. Political allusions aren't Wikipedia quoted, lots of stuff like that. You just don't really get that anymore these days. What do you think of Mad Men, if you've seen it? This is another one of those examples where I watched the first couple of episodes and then I just never watched the rest of it. And again, just like I've said about like Battlestar Galactica and Stargate SG-1, I really, really liked it. I just got distracted and never got back to it. But from what I remember of the few episodes of Mad Men that I did watch, I thought it was brilliant. I thought the acting could not have been better. The writing was razor sharp. It looked fantastic. The sets, the costumes, that early 60s aesthetic, and like it looked fabulous. I'm sure if I ever get around to actually watching the rest of it, I'll think it was great. And I agree with you about that, the sort of the level of the intelligence of the writing, what I call the intelligence of the writing, in terms of respect for the audience, not spoon feeding the audience everything, trusting that they'll get it, and writing in a way that they need to be paying attention. It's like the sort of the philosophy now that has come from not just streaming services, but also the ubiquity of these things. And we have our phone. You like my lock screen there? We have our phones with us all the time, and there's always that temptation to, you're watching something on TV and you just pick up your phone and you don't even realize you're doing it until you're doing it. And then you're like, I'm not even watching this anymore. And that's a bad habit that a lot of us have gotten into. But the problem is, since everybody knows that a bunch of people have that bad habit, now TV shows are written with that in mind. And a lot of TV shows and streaming shows especially are written for people who aren't watching them. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, write the show for the people who are paying attention to it. Don't write the show and say, well, we've got to write it this way. We've got to make the dialogue super obvious. We've got to have the characters repeat themselves over and over again. And if we're making any sort of allusion, we have to underline it and stamp it to make sure everybody gets it because, a lot of people aren't really watching. Why are you writing the show for people who aren't watching it? Write the show for the people who are going to pay attention to it, and write in a way that requires you to pay attention in order to get something out of it and rewards your attention. You'd be amazed how much better a movie or a TV show is when you actually fucking watch it. It makes such a difference. And yes, I very much appreciate things that are written that way instead of the, let's just write and assume that they're only half paying attention, so we have to keep reminding them of stuff or make everything super, super obvious. Russell. Hi, Steve. Odd question. First, this is an opinion, so regardless of what you say, I respect it, and this is no attack. Okay, you never have to say that. How dare you attack me like this? I never think that, but anyway. And especially since it's such a gentle question. It's not like an inflammatory question at all. Why did NYPD Blue work for you when ER didn't? What was it about ER you didn't like, and what was it about NYPD Blue that got you hooked? Also, since I brought up NYPD Blue, what did you think of the episode after Sylvia dies? The speech with John Irvin at the end of the episode with Andy. I don't blame you speech. Isn't she in a better place? Well, first of all, it's hard to articulate, especially because it's been a long time since I watched any of ER, and I never really watched that much of it to begin with because it just didn't grab me. I'm not sure what it was. I tried to watch it because it was so popular, and everybody was watching it, and it just didn't grab me. I just didn't think it was interesting. I wasn't compelled by it. But NYPD Blue, I was hooked as soon as I watched it. I don't know if it's the style, if it's the acting, if it's the characters, the music, the fact that it was a cop show, and I've always been more naturally drawn to cop shows than to medical shows, or what. But yeah. And it's interesting to think about them because I never really compare NYPD Blue and ER. But yeah, ER just didn't do it for me, and NYPD Blue did. And yeah, that scene you're describing is beautiful. It's the episode after Andy's wife was killed off. Sharon Lawrence, the actor who played Sylvia, Andy's wife, was leaving the show, so they killed her off. and she was shot, and another character was also shot, and that was John, the PA for the detective squad. And John and Andy had kind of a complicated history because John was gay, and Andy, being an intolerant person, was uncomfortable with John being gay, and their relationship kind of progressed over the years to where Andy kind of got over some of his bullshit and became more accepting of John. And there's this beautiful short scene between the two of them where John has gotten out of the hospital and he's okay. And Sylvia, of course, Andy's wife, is dead. And he's been dreading seeing Andy all this time because he doesn't know if Andy's going to be mad at him because he survived and Andy's wife didn't. And they see each other, and Andy just says, I'm not mad at you. I don't blame you for anything. You tried to help people. And they embrace. And Andy says, don't you think she's in a better place? And John kind of tearfully agrees. And then Andy says, I got to go. And he leaves. And that's it. Because Andy is a very, internalized person. He's very reined in and very repressed. And he's not someone who does big emotional displays. So that was like a big deal for Andy to hug him and to sort of comfort him in a way and say, don't you think she's in a better place? It's a beautiful scene. It's a beautiful scene. And it follows one of the long-term bits of Sipowicz's character arc, which is that when he is put into situations where he has to comfort someone, where he has to reassure someone or show some kind of emotion or tenderness to someone, it's healing for him, because he doesn't do that. He's not comfortable with that. That just doesn't come naturally to him. So when he is in a situation where he does embrace another person who is in pain, and he does offer even just some very meager words of sympathy or empathy or encouragement or whatever. Like it's healing to Andy as well. And I think that's part of the way they told that long-term story of him eventually getting over a lot of his bigotry. Was putting him in those situations where he had to show human feeling to other people and make those connections. I know it's a beautiful scene. Um, and Russell's member question. Hey again, Steve. I recently watched the DS9 episodes Homefront and Paradise Lost. If you need a refresher, this is the one where Starfleet tries to initiate martial law on Earth because of a changeling danger. Here's my question. Was Admiral Layton wrong? I mean, technically, after everything is said and done, there are still 4 changelings on Earth. And keep in mind, the Federation has dealt with similar threats, the Borg, these parasites creatures from TNG's one episode conspiracy. Are they wrong? Yeah, they're wrong. Did they declare martial law on Earth when the Borg invaded? Did they declare martial law on Earth for those, parasite things that crawled into people's mouths and had the little tail sticking out of their neck from conspiracy? Not that we ever heard. But they need to declare martial law for the changelings. It's not that Layton was wrong about the danger. Like the danger was real, the threat was real. The problem was he used that as an excuse to try and grab authoritarian power, and there was no need for that. And I think you can look throughout actual history, and you can find examples of democratic societies dealing with threats or perceived threats in ways that strip away the rights of others, and those decisions in the full light of history are not looked at fondly. We look back with a lot of very rightful pride and gratitude on Abraham Lincoln winning the Civil War, but we don't particularly celebrate the fact that he suspended habeas corpus and he jailed judges that he felt would rule in ways that would threaten the war effort. I mean, he did what he thought he had to do, but I don't think history particularly wants to celebrate the fact that he did those things. I don't think we look at them and go, yeah, he definitely did the right thing there. Franklin Roosevelt forcing, Japanese Americans and to a lesser extent German and Italian Americans into internment camps during World War II. That was viewed by the people who supported it. That was viewed as a necessary thing to respond to what was perceived as a threat. Was it actually necessary? No. Did it actually accomplish anything? No. Was the threat real? No. Do we look back on those actions now and say, well, FDR did what he had to do? No, but that's looked at as a great stain on FDR's presidency. That's looked at as a shame, as something that we should be incredibly sorry happened. And I think that's analogous to what Admiral Layton was trying to do. Like yes, sure, there were there was a threat. There was a threat. Changelings were going to infiltrate Starfleet. There was the chance that something bad was going to happen. And that threat needed to be responded to. But did the response need to be martial law? No. So yes, Layton was wrong. And that's the last question. Can you believe that? That's the last question. So before I move on to the live chat, let me reboot the live chat viewer here, as has become tradition on the live stream. And while I do that, I will tell you that coming up right after the live chat viewer reboots, I'm going to show you a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. I'm going to show you that, and then I will turn my full attention to the live chat for the remainder of the live stream. But yeah, it's time for a Stuffy short. And this is a brand new Stuffy short. I just shot it and edited it this week. And you will see it as a standalone YouTube short on this channel starting tomorrow. But because you all have the good sense to be watching this live stream right now, you get to see it before anybody else does. So please do now enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short.
It smells a little stale in here. Do you mind if I light a scented candle?
I mind very much.
Oh, okay. Why?
As an arsonist, I object on principle to confining a flame to a wee glass jar like that.
Fair enough, I suppose.
Let the fire be free.
Yep.
Did I show you guys what Jason got me for my birthday?
Very nice.
Thank you. Yeah. It fits great, too. I think I might have a new favorite shirt.
You say that now, but how long until it's just another jizz rag?
This shirt? This shirt will never be a jizz rag.
You're so certain?
Yes. It was a gift from my best friend. I value it. I would never soil it with my vainly spilled seed, not even on the inside, where no one would ever see the shameful stain of my busted nut.
Bollocks. I'll give it a year and a half. That's my typical. What about you?
Excuse me? I was daydreaming about walking into the Antarctic interior like a rogue penguin.
What's it take until one of your shirts becomes a jizz rag?
How long is your shirt to jizz rag pipeline?
I don't discuss my personal habits. I find it uncouth. Also, I don't wear shirts.
He's jizzing all over the place, this one.
On that subject, I only ever see you wearing that shirt.
So,
do you have like a drawer full of shirts just like that one at home, or do you wear that same one every day over and over again?
you'll never guess in a million tries.
Is it the first thing I said?
No.
Is it the second thing I said?
God damn it.
Oh, that Jack. Okay. Caitlin Stuffy didn't deny having that. That's right. He just said, I don't discuss my personal habits. All right. So let me acknowledge some super chats that came in. And then, and I think somebody asked earlier, I noticed right before I clicked over, 255 AD wanted to know about the questions thing. I'm going to try not doing the questions thing this time. We'll just see how it goes and doing it the old fashioned way. If you all liked it better when I turned on the Q&A feature in chat and you could submit questions and have them in like a, like we can do that. But I know a couple of people mentioned last time that I was paying so much attention to the questions that I wasn't paying attention to the regular live chat, and people were saying stuff in the regular live chat that maybe I should have been paying more attention to. So we're just going to leave it like this for this one, and we'll see how it goes. And if you'd rather I do the, turn on the Q&A feature, then we can do that next time. But anyway, some super chats came in. First of all, before we went live, Debbie Bannister sent in a super chat. And I acknowledged it in the chat, but I wanted to say it here too. Debbie said, sorry, I can't be here. It's my husband's birthday. And since I'm his wife, he expects me to go, but our friends are coming and they are all Republicans. Say a prayer for me. Catch Ask Away next time. And thank you very much, Debbie. I hope the dinner is going okay. Happy birthday to your husband. And thank you as always for your kindness and your generosity. John Burns sent in a couple of super chats. Several super chats. The first one says, Steve should play the card game Wrastlin' Awesome. I've never heard of it. I have no interest in it, but thank you for the suggestion. John Burns also says, I liked the cab driver in the TV series Sliders. The cab driver. Who was the cab driver? I remember Jerry O'Connell. I remember Sabrina Lloyd. I can't remember the actor's name, but Rembrandt Brown, like the singer. And I remember the professor, John Rhys Davies. I don't remember the cab driver, but anyway. And Zulu Romeo says cricket is greater than baseball. There, I said it. Okay, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, my friend. Thank you for the super chat. Here's another one from John Burns who says, Superman's the dream, Batman's the truth, Wonder Woman. I don't know. I don't know. What's left? What's left after the dream and the truth? I don't know. Wonder Woman can be something. We have to think of what Wonder Woman is. And X Demonox says, thank you for the super chat, my friend. Says, happy Friday. Sorry I'm late. Idea. The best holodeck episode. Ernest programs the holodeck. Chaos ensues, doesn't matter what show. I agree. Best holodeck episode, doesn't matter what show. If Jim Varney were alive, I actually would join that letter writing campaign. If there was a letter writing campaign to get Ernest into a Star Trek show, I would sign whatever petition you wanted me to sign. I would email whoever you wanted me to email. That's a great idea. And super chat from Stephen Clenard. Thank you very much, my friend. Says, do you think they should reboot Three's Company? Also, are you Team Roper? or Team Furley? Now, I don't think they should reboot Three's Company because it's fine the way it is. If they did reboot it, I would probably check it out just out of curiosity to see how it was. And if it turned out to be a good show, I would happily watch it. But I am Team Roper. I am Team Roper, and I will tell you why. It has nothing to do with the quality of the performances, because I thought Don Knotts was brilliant as Mr. Furley, and I like Mr. Furley, and there are some really great episodes from the Mr. Furley era of the show. But here's why I think Mr. Roper and the Ropers in general were better. First of all, Mr. Roper's relationship to the kids, Jack and Chrissy and Janet, was adversarial. Mr. Roper was not their buddy. There were a couple of times where they kind of got along, or where they, Roper and Jack and the girls kind of reached an understanding. But overall, Roper was an adversarial presence. He was an antagonist. And Mrs. Roper was very much on the kids' side, and that created tension between her and Mr. Roper, which was interesting and funny. And, so there were different layers to it. Whereas Mr. Furley, except for maybe his first season, was pretty much just their pal. Like, Mr. Furley was very rarely an actual threat to them. Again, except for early on, maybe in his first season. And I just think the tension between Jack, Chrissy, and Janet having to worry about their landlord and having to worry about paying the rent on time, or having to worry about getting kicked out if he finds out what they're up to or whatever, that just feeds the comedy much more effectively than if the landlord is just kind of a cuddly doofus that they don't feel threatened by. So that's why I'm Team Roper. But I mean, obviously Don Knotts was a genius. Super chat from Kirak just came in, says John Rhys Davies plays Kingpin in the Hulk TV movie. I remember that. And I have those Hulk movies on DVD. I haven't watched them for a very long time. Maybe I should go back and watch them to remind myself. Dana has a good point. Wouldn't Wonder Woman be the truth? I mean, she does have the rope. She does have the lasso. Let's see. Oh, good idea, Caitlin. I could run a poll. Maybe I should do that. Let me start a poll. Should I use the Q&A feature? I'll just say that. Should I use the Q&A feature during future Askaways? Let's just do that. There you go. So, just what do you think? Hey, Jason's here. Hi, Jason. Oh, Wonder Woman is the myth. Well, of course. That makes sense. 255 AD says, how would your Irish bear react to Fairhaven? Oh, he would hate it. Jack would be incredibly offended by Fairhaven. Yeah. Jack, the fact that Jack himself is an Irish stereotype he would be oblivious to that. And if you tried to say that to him, he would be really pissed at you. If you said to Jack that he was an Irish stereotype, he would be furious at you. And if he watched Fairhaven, he would be furious at that episode for being full of Irish stereotypes, such as Jack. The Twister truck was a replica, Isaiah says. Clevant Derricks was Rembrandt Brown. Yes, Don Quixote. Thank you. It was the same cab driver in there. Oh, I remember that now. Thanks, John. Okay, yeah, there was a cab driver who was always in. It was the same actor, but he was a different person on every parallel. Okay, I remember that now. And Greg Gildersleeve, thank you for the super chat, but I am neither Team Frank Burns or Team Charles Winchester because I never watched MASH, because the few times I did watch it, I didn't like it. So that's one of my hot takes. That's one of my controversial opinions about television. I'm not a huge fan of MASH. You know what else? I was never really a big fan of Cheers either. I'm sorry. I loved Frasier. When Frasier started, I watched Frasier and I thought Frasier was fucking genius. I was never a huge fan of Cheers. I just never thought it was all that funny. And like Cheers and MASH are like the two most, critically acclaimed sitcoms ever. And I'm just not really a fan of them, So take that as you will. Steve Schmeling says, with a new Spider-Man movie coming, were you as disappointed as I was that No Way Home teased us by having Pete's landlord say something off camera and not Ditkovich? No, I'm fine with that. I mean, I think we've had enough callbacks and crossovers. I think it's fine for him to have a landlord who's not Mr. Ditkovich. Not everything has to be a reference to something else. Yes, Caitlin, that's why Jack boycotted the review, even though I alluded to him. Yes. I didn't even show it to him. I didn't even show him the episode. I was afraid what he might do. Because when he gets mad, there's no controlling him. There's no telling what that little fucker is going to do. Okay, now we're going through what the different superheroes are. Jason says Green Lantern is the know-it-all cousin who won't shut up at Thanksgiving dinner. Martian Manhunter is the humorless guidance counselor who keeps telling you to do better in school. He's on a roll. The Flash is that friendly coke addict who is harmless until the high comes down. There you go. Yeah, Simon, if Jack wouldn't like Fairhaven, he'd have a fit over the Bringley. He probably would. Yeah, he probably would. Jack's not a huge Star Trek fan, thankfully. Jack's not a huge Star Trek fan. Yeah, Simon, I think it's just like Frasier's humor style just fits with my taste more for some reason. Like, because Frasier was very much was a farce. The plots were very intricate, and it was just a really smart but kind of classical sort of theater-like show. Like the really good Frasier episodes are all really tightly written farces, and I love that. Because it's like a machine. It's you wind it up and you just let it go, and if you built it the right way, it's just guaranteed to work. That's the beautiful thing about farce, is it's really, really hard to do well. But if you do it right and you get all the pieces in place and you get all the timing correct, all you have to do is just turn it loose, and it's guaranteed to be funny. And that was Frasier at its best. 255 AD says, about the Odyssey, why doesn't a story based on a myth set off your distaste for fantasy? My distaste for fantasy is based on modern, like post-Tolkien high fantasy, because Tolkien and most of the writers who emulate Tolkien have this pretentious, elevated, holier than thou, up their own ass tone that I just find really tedious and off-putting. And it's possible that an adaptation of the Odyssey might have that. But if you read the original text of the Odyssey, I don't speak the original language. If you read a good English translation of the Odyssey, it doesn't have that. Like the telling of the Odyssey is fairly matter of fact, fairly straightforward. There's not a lot of bullshit layered on top of it. And also, like, the Odyssey is a foundational text. That's the other thing. The Odyssey wasn't written by some dork who just enjoyed making up words and making up names for shit and said, let me write an insanely long book about this. Homer wasn't a loser fucking dork with too much time on his hands and a neurotic fixation on language that he chose to, inflict on the rest of the world. So yeah, I'm saying Homer, whoever he was a vastly superior writer to fucking J.R.R. Tolkien. And it's a foundational text. It's a story that was the inspiration for countless later stories. It's one of the most important works of Western literature ever written. So it's got that going for it. And yes, it is a fantasy. It's a myth, or it's based on myth, but it's also an adventure story. And I love adventure stories. Dana, but the problem is you're wrong. The problem is you're wrong. Fitzgerald is not even like there's not a Fitzgerald isn't 1% as full of shit as Tolkien is. Let me show you something just to illustrate my point. I'll be right back. So here's the thing. Even if F. Scott Fitzgerald was as full of shit as you are accusing him of being, Dana. See this? You see this? That's how long the book is, right? You see that? Even if it was as full of shit as you say he is, that's all there is, right? Now, if you took like fucking 10 of these and stacked them up on top of each other, then that's the Lord of the Rings. So, I mean, just in terms of sheer bulk, even if they're equally full of shit, just by sheer bulk, Fitzgerald comes out on top because at least he doesn't expect you to sit through like thousands of pages of his bullshit. And also, it's not bullshit. It's the greatest novel in the history of the United States. But anyway, Isaiah says, what do you think of me wanting to be a storm chaser? If that's what you want to do, I think you should do it. I think it's great. Dana just says no. Well, that's a compelling argument. John Burns says, did you check out Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano? No, I was not interested in watching two transphobes have a fight. I'm not really like an MMA fan anyway. But I was especially not a fan of the idea of, oh, look, here's an incredibly transphobic person and a slightly less transphobic person, but who still has a history of saying transphobic shit. Hey, let's watch them fight for millions of dollars on Netflix. No, thank you. No, if I was gonna watch an MMA fight, it sure as hell wasn't gonna be that one. What are you talking about, Dana? Tolkien isn't forced onto. We never had to read The Great Gatsby when I was in high school. I narrowly avoided having to read The fucking Hobbit. I was very fortunate to be in a section of English in my freshman year where we didn't read The fucking Hobbit. And I will be grateful for that for the rest of my fucking life. I wish we had read The Great Gatsby. I read The Great Gatsby on my own. We didn't read it in school. I know it is read in school, but I get the impression that The Hobbit is way, way more broadly read in school than The Great Gatsby is. So I don't really get where, and plus, like those fucking Lord of the Rings movies made zillions of dollars and were fucking inescapable. There hasn't even been a decent or popular Great Gatsby movie yet made ever. How can you say that Fitzgerald is forced on more people than Tolkien? You know how many people think that J.R.R. Tolkien is like the greatest writer ever? It's fucking ridiculous. Do you know how hard that is? You know how hard it is for me to live in this world where there are so many people who think that fucking J.R.R. Tolkien is a good, let alone great writer. You have any idea how hard it is for me to exist in this world? And yet you complain and you piss and you moan about the Great Gatsby, one of the most beautifully written books ever in the history of anything. But you find this pretentious. But the fucking, the Hobbit stuff that goes on for about 5 or 6 times as long as it, the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, if it were this long, I think I might like it more. If it got to the fucking point, and if that motherfucker didn't insist on giving everybody 17 fucking names and making up new names for everything except fucking potatoes. Anyway. Neither is yours, Dana. My experience isn't definitive. Neither is yours. No, Jason, I can be engaged for a written work for. You know what book I really love that is a really long book? The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. It's a great fucking book. I love that book, and it is on the long side, yeah. But it's really beautifully written, and it's not full of shit, and it's not completely up its own ass. It's not written by someone who apparently thought they were writing the fucking Bible when they're writing a stupid story about elves and fucking hobbits and shit and wizards. Oh yeah, this needs to be 1,200 fucking pages. Anyway, The Stand. I like The Stand. The long version, like the fucking 700-page version. It's a good buy. That's a really good book. It's a really good book. I'd rather read The Stand fucking 50 times in a row than have to force myself to read one page of fucking J.R.R. Tolkien's fucking overwrought bullshit. No, Jason, I have an attention span. We just reviewed The Batman. That movie's like 3 hours long. And I'm right there the whole time. I'm not even on my phone. I'm right there the whole time. And what else? Fucking Godfather 2, which is like 11 and a half hours long. I love that fucking movie. Although I will say He-Man it is going to have another shot to destroy my attention span coming up pretty soon because the new movie's coming out in the next couple of weeks. We'll see. We'll see how my attention span is doing after that, because I'll probably see it and then I'll rush back home and watch a bunch of old He-Man episodes, and then that will really wreck my attention span. Oh, good for you, Dana. You're not going to have. Yes, you're not going to have to teach one of the most beautiful novels ever written. So I'm very happy for you. Joanna says, do you miss Tuvix? No, I don't. No, I don't miss Tuvix. I mean, like I've said before, like the way the episode is written, I don't think what Janeway does to Tuvix is the right thing, or is justifiable. But no, I don't miss. I think some people misunderstand. I don't think they should have written out Neelix and Tuvok and just had Tuvix there for the rest of the show. They should have gotten rid of Tuvix in some way, but the way they did it, it made everybody look bad. But no, I don't miss Tuvix. And if I missed him all that much, I could just go watch that episode again, because the truth is there is no Tuvix. He's just a made up fictional man. And if I want to see him again, I can just watch that episode. And there he is. There's Tuvix for a little while. Oh, Steven, I didn't know that. Steven with a member message says elves and hobbits and shit and wizards was the working title. But the publisher said no. I love it. Elves and hobbits and shit and wizards. I might actually read it. If that was the fucking title. John Burns, I have no idea what you're even talking about, but thank you for the super chat. The cross-time engineer, drunken pole time travel. Okay. Dana says, do whatever you want to do, go wherever you want to go, have whatever you want to have. How much wealth is that? I mean, it's probably less than $1 billion. I think you can probably have that kind of life with less than $1 billion. You get up into the hot, what would that be then? 9 figures, the high 9 figures. I feel like you can still have that kind of life, even if you don't have $1 billion of total net worth. I don't have an exact figure. It's a lot of money, but I mean, it's probably far less money than like, Bezos or Musk have. Oh, Cast Iron Chaos. What a great question. Cast Iron Chaos with a super chat. What's the most blatant, over the top, hit you over the head symbolism in Gatsby? For me, it's the eyes of TJ Eckelberg. Either that or the clock. And I think maybe you're right that it's the eyes of TJ Eckelberg, because like it's literally the metaphor attached to the TJ Eckelberg billboard is the eyes of God. And it's literally eyes. Like it's literally eyes looking down. And there's a little bit of sort of satirical, edge to it, because it's an advertisement, and like the symbol is sort of a cynical comment on modernity. Like the eyes of God are represented by an old forgotten advertisement. But still, like it's the eyes of God, and it's literally just a dude's eyes. That's pretty obvious. And also the fact that, like, I think at one point, George, Myrtle's husband, George Wilson, he calls them the eyes of God. He says, God is watching you. God sees what you do. And the guy who's staying with him to look after him after his wife is killed says, that's an advertisement. Like it's pretty blatant. So I think you've got to give it to that. Yeah. That's not one of the subtler passages in the book where the distraught, grieving, deranged husband is like, it's God. And his buddy is like, no, it's not. It's just an advertisement. Like, not super subtle there, F. Scott. But if not that, then the clock that Gatsby accidentally knocks off the shelf and then, you know, struggles to catch, and it's a stopped clock as well. So it represents the past. And yeah, that's some pretty heavy symbolism too. Rich Dries says, funnily enough, I was forced to read Gatsby in high school and I liked it and read Lord of the Rings for fun. Different strokes. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, just because I have an overwhelming vitriolic disgust for Lord of the Rings doesn't mean I begrudge other people liking it. What I begrudge is having pop culture so fucking drenched in it. If other people like the book or like the movies, like I'm, you know, I like what you like, enjoy what you enjoy. You know, I don't begrudge anybody liking stuff that I don't happen to like, but it does get a little tiresome when it's like, you know, it's been fucking 20 years since those movies came out and they're still like Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings fucking everywhere. And I'm just fucking done with it. You know, I'm just fucking done with it. 255 AD says, how would you react if New Trek did an episode where Tuvix came back to get his revenge, like from an alternate universe or something? That would have to be one hell of a good episode because that's a terrible idea. That's a terrible pandering, like narrow cast, just for the nerds idea that I instinctively would want to fire whoever pitched it. Like if I were running a Star Trek show and one of my writers said, let's do an episode where Tuvix comes back from an alternate universe and gets revenge, I'd be like, you don't work here anymore. Why did I ever hire you? Get out, pack up your desk and get the fuck out. You know, but no, I mean, so yeah, it would have to be one hell of a story to overcome that, just the general awfulness of the premise. Cast Iron Chaos says, you know who else hated Tolkien? Gary Gygax, the co-creator of D&D. Okay, so there's one thing I like about him. Jason says Steve wants a Great Gatsby convention that I would not go to. If somebody wants to have a Great Gatsby convention that I wouldn't by no means ever attend, that would be great. Oh, Steve Schmeling says, I win, Dana. Didn't have to see a Gatsby movie until I got out of high school. Was forced to watch the animated Hobbit twice. Sadistic. There ought to be a law. Yes, you know, no, Sean, Jason is misleading you. I would never go to a convention. I would never go to a convention unless I was being paid to be there. No, I would never go to a convention unless I was being paid to be there. Although GatsbyCon is a good name, Zulu. Steven says, oh, you retracted it. He said somebody ought to make a Great Gatsby role-playing game just to piss off Steve. I mean, I wouldn't play it, so it wouldn't really bother me. The idea of it would make me kind of roll my eyes and go, oh, Christ. You know, but it wouldn't it wouldn't bother me because I would never play it. That's true, Simon. That's true, Simon. Just remember, we can just put on the late seating of the films. Yes, because we have reviewed all 3 Lord of the Rings films on late seating. You can listen to those anytime and enjoy my pain whenever you want. That's right. That's right. I rewatched Fellowship of the Ring, and I watched Two Towers and Return of the King for the first time for the show, for late seating, because that is how much I love my friend, and that is how seriously I take that show. And I watch whatever movie we review, even if my entire body rebels against the idea of it, because that is the role I have chosen for myself. And I am committed to it, and I will do it, and I will take it seriously. And I will say to my dying day, The Return of the King is a fucking dog shit film. Aaron Sunks, what's my beef with cons? I just don't see, it's not something I enjoy. I just don't like going to things like that. I don't want anybody's autograph. I don't want to take pictures with people. I'm not really that interested. I have occasionally watched like recordings of panels from cons. You know, like if it was like a panel that somebody put up on YouTube that sounded interesting or that had people on it that I thought were interesting. I've watched like the video of it, but why do I need to actually be there in the room? You know, just the whole nothing about it appeals to me. But again, like if other people clearly enjoy them, you know, so I don't begrudge them. If people like going to cons, they should go to them and have a good time. I think that's great. But there's literally nothing about going to a con that appeals to me. Oh, Jason, now this is a little chilling. Steve should be thankful that the Great Gatsby isn't as popular as the Lord of the Rings. Imagine the streaming prequel shows. And then Caitlin said, "Young Gatsby." Yeah. John, is Avery Brooks offering me his autograph? Like, what is the situation? John says you would refuse Avery Brooks's. Is Avery Brooks like asking me to take his autograph? And I'm refusing? Like, that's a really weird scenario you're pitching there, buddy. Avery Brooks is like, take my autograph, Steve. Like, when is that ever going to happen? He's like volunteering autographs to people. He's just like walking up to people going, here you go. I don't think so. Steve Schmeling says, are there any MST movies you've seen without the MST treatment? Yes. I don't know if I still have it or not. I used to have a DVD of Space Mutiny, like the non-MST version. Yeah. And there's a couple other ones too that I've watched without the it's more fun to watch the MST 3K version. Although with Space, if you watch the original version of Space Mutiny, but you watch it with someone else and you can like sort of, you know, do your own version of the Mystery Science Theater thing and make fun of it while you watch it, it's a great time. And I've probably seen one or two other ones as well. And I'll tell you what, they did once upon a time, they did Godzilla versus Megalon as a Mystery Science Theater episode, which is my favorite Godzilla movie, other than Godzilla -1, of course, which is off in its own category. But of like the classic sort of cheesy Godzilla movies, Godzilla versus Megalon is my favorite. I've loved that movie since I was a little kid. And there's a Mystery Science Theater of it. So yeah, I've seen that one too, many times. 255 AD says, would you go to a Steve Shives convention, like a whole room full of guys with baseball caps? And that's the convention I would want to go to the least. Dana, I kind of know what the buzz is on Mando and Grogu. I've read some reviews of it. I mean, that kind of thing doesn't really, if I want to see a movie, that usually doesn't change whether or not I see it, you know? I got my tickets. I'm definitely going to see it, on Sunday, you know, but no, I don't make a conscious effort to like avoid. I grew up on Siskel and Ebert. You know, I got into the habit of reading reviews before I saw the movie because, again, like a proper review of a new film is spoiler free. So you don't have to worry about them spoiling anything in the movie for you. You just learn what this particular reviewer's opinion is of it. And, you know, it sort of helps to set your expectation, but sometimes the expectation is completely defied. Like I usually agreed with Roger Ebert. Ebert usually liked movies I liked and didn't like movies I liked. But there were some times where I would read a review that Roger Ebert wrote and he gave a movie like a really good review. And I went to see the movie and I was like, what the fuck movie did he see? This is fucking terrible. You know, that kind of thing happened because it's subjective. Taste is very different for each individual. But no, I don't. I mean, I'm aware of what the general buzz is around it, and I'm still going to go see it and make up my own mind. And maybe, hopefully, I'll like it. Maybe I won't. 255 AD says, "Would you want to live in a world without springs?" Oh, you mean no springs? Would I want to live in that world? No springs. No, I wouldn't. I saw a short about that once, and it gave me the impression that that world would be quite a hellish world. Yeah. Steve Schmeling, I like that. Avery Brooks, here, have an autograph. No thanks. Avery Brooks, I can live with it. It's nicely done. Nicely done. Yeah, Wolferman Hart, Godzilla -1 sequel is out this summer. Yeah, I know. I thought you were making a joke. Godzilla is the sequel to Godzilla -1. Yeah, I heard that they're making a sequel to Godzilla -1. I'm curious to see it because I mean, Godzilla -1 is like, fuck, what a great movie. Oh my God, what a great movie. Yeah, Dana, I would say so. I think to me, it's setting the bar for spoiler a little high if you say that, you know, if you regard hearing anyone's opinion about the movie before you see it as a spoiler. I think that's a little. First of all, that completely takes away the entire, you know, concept of movie reviews. Like the whole idea of movie reviews is you read them before you see the movie. And then that helps you set expectations or maybe decide whether you want to see the movie or not. You know, like that, but they don't spoil what happens in the movie in any specific way. So you can still go see the movie and, you know, experience it for the first time and be surprised by it. But you have an indication of, you know, what it's going to be like. The idea of, well, I literally don't want to hear anything about the movie until I see it. That sounds really unreasonable and kind of, you know, neurotic. No, I think for me, that's way too high of a bar. No, to me, spoilers are when you reveal like important things that happen in the movie. Like you can even, and like things that the audience would really, really want to discover for themselves. Like some people say, like, if you tell me literally anything that happens in the movie, that's a spoiler. You know, like even if I make a review and I mention shit that like, you know, just from watching the trailers, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I wish you hadn't spoiled that for me. Motherfucker, it's in the commercial. I didn't spoil anything. I didn't tell you like a big twist in the movie. You know, I just told you, oh, by the way, Harrison Ford's in it. Ah, fuck. I was going to go see that. You know what I mean? Like that's no. Jonas says, did any comment on your Star Trek reviews ever change your mind about a take you had? No. Not that I can think of. John Burns, I liked Ace Ventura more than Siskel and Ebert did. Yeah, the first one. I mean, if I watched it again now, I don't know what I would think of it, but when I watched it when it first came out, when I was like 14, I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, and Siskel and Ebert thought it was terrible. But, you know, like I said, I don't, you know, their opinions vary, as a great man once said. Caitlin says, did you like Shin Godzilla? Yes, I did. I did like Shin Godzilla. I didn't think it was even in the same category as Godzilla -1. Like Godzilla -1 is just in a class by itself. But no, I did like Shin Godzilla. I liked the way it kind of reframed Godzilla as a Fukushima metaphor instead of an atomic bomb metaphor, and kind of tried to modernize, you know, the sort of the metaphor, the allegory of it. I thought that was interesting. Some of the action scenes were really good. The effects were great. I liked that it was really presented as like a disaster movie, which I thought was interesting and was a slightly different way of telling a Godzilla story than we'd seen in the past. Like it was really, it was presented like a fairly serious, straightforward disaster movie. I thought it worked pretty well. But yeah, Godzilla -1 just blows everything out of the water. It's just, whew, goddamn. Yeah, John, exactly. The Wrath of Khan. Well, even like, hey, you know, Khan from Space Seed is in it. Oh, Jesus. What? You ruined the movie for me. Yeah, some people have unrealistic standards. Yeah, Caitlin, there's a climax in Act 3. Let me see. Oh, Kino, that's interesting. I watched Manos: The Hands of Fate before the MST3K one. Interesting. 55 AD says, if you really want to avoid all spoilers, should you go to the movie theater and just ask them to give you a ticket at random, like so you don't even know the title? Yeah, exactly. It gets a little ridiculous. Well, and also, I mean, again, this is just me. This isn't anybody else. But before I went to see Avengers Endgame, I was scrolling Instagram and someone spoiled, like before I could look away, like I wasn't expecting to read it, and someone spoiled like literally the entire movie. And they had like a bug up their ass about something, and they were just really, and it was like, it was malicious. Like they were like, hey, fuck you. Here's what happens in the Avengers movie. And I went to see it anyway, and I thought it was great. Like, to me, like when I do spoiler alerts for my Star Trek reviews, like it's part of it is it's half of like a bit at this point, because I'm doing Star Trek retro reviews. I'm doing reviews of episodes that have been out for decades that don't really warrant a spoiler alert, you know? Like, do I really need to say now spoilers for this 30-year-old fucking Deep Space Nine episode? But I do it because, maybe somebody hasn't seen it, right? But for me personally, I don't care. Like, I have never had a movie spoiled for me before I saw it and then not enjoyed the movie because it was spoiled. And if you think about it, if you really like a movie, are you going to hate it if you watch it the second time and you know everything that's going to happen? Like, all of my favorite films I've watched over and over again. I know every single thing that's going to happen, but I still get involved. I still find them engrossing, you know? Like, it still works for me emotionally because it's a good movie and it captures my imagination. It doesn't matter that I know what's going to happen. Who cares? You know? I mean, since we talk about Star Trek, like, I know at the end of Star Trek 2, I know that Spock comes back in the very next movie. I'm still sad at the end of Star Trek 2. It's still Spock's death and the funeral and Kirk's eulogy of him still work. They still affect me. They still move me. Even though I know that Star Trek 3 exists and Spock comes back and Spock is back like for the rest of the fucking, for the next 20 years. Doesn't matter. The movie itself works. And I know, I guess maybe not everybody's like that, or maybe like they approach it differently if it's a new movie and they feel like they have to go into it completely cold and, not have any foreknowledge of anything. But again, it's just me. Like, I don't seek out spoilers, like I don't try to find out every single thing that happens in a movie before I see it. But if somebody happens to mention something, like if it's a good movie, it's a good movie, Dana says, at what point are spoiler alerts not necessary? I mean, I think, well, here's the thing. I think if you are reviewing something that is new, like it's a movie that just came out in theaters or that is still in theaters, I think the best practice is to do a review with no spoilers. And that's what I do. Don't even do a spoiler, just do a spoiler-free review, because that's what movie critics have done for 100 years. You write a spoiler-free review. That's part of the discipline. That's what you do. That's how you review it. But if you feel like you have to talk spoilers, then yes, you should put a spoiler alert. Saying we're going to talk spoilers in this. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to know what happens in it, don't watch after this point, right? That just seems fair. I would say after the movie has been out for a year, that's probably a good line where you can say, okay, I'm not going to do a spoiler alert anymore. And like I said, I still do them for the Star Trek things. Half of that is just as a comedy bit, but I don't really think I need to. And it's funny, like every once in a while, and if I do because I usually don't do spoiler alerts in my Trek Actually video essays, where I often will talk about plot points in, episodes and movies. And I usually, like, every once in a while I might do a spoiler alert, but usually as a general practice, I don't do a spoiler alert because it's a video essay. It's not really a review. I'm talking about the assumption is that the things I'm talking about are things that we've all seen, or at least that we know something about. Right. And I still, every once in a while, I'll get like really indignant comments from people go, I can't believe you spoiled Star Trek 6 or whatever. Like, I was watching the Star Trek movies in order for the first time, and now I know what happens. Well, I'm sorry that I spoiled for you a movie that came out in 1991. I'm sorry. I'm not really going to lose sleep over that though. Like, I'm sorry that our destinies crossed in this particular way by random chance that spoiled that movie for you, but like, I'm not really going to have trouble going on after that, right? But yeah, spoiler for the Lord of the Rings, they destroy the ring. Yeah, finally. Yeah, they destroy the ring, and then what, the movie goes on for like another 6 or 7 hours, right? A true acolyte says, great vids here. The dead zone is a mine. Pillars. Thank you. Whatever any of that means. Thank you very much. So Steve Schmeling, that's true. Spoiler alert: Gatsby wasn't so great. He had, he had certain ethical problems, I think, in various ways. Yes, I believe so. No, Aaron Sunks, you have it backwards. It was Siskel that did that, and Ebert was mad at him. It was The Crying Game. Gene Siskel gave away the big twist in The Crying Game on their TV show. And I mean, he kind of did a spoiler alert, but it was like really quick. He was like, because he said, we, in order to talk about the movie, we have to talk about the big twist. So like, you knew it was coming, but like, you would have had to like change the channel right then, or you would have heard it. And, it was their review. Like, the movie had just come out in theaters, and they were doing their review of it that week. And Ebert was really mad at him for that, because like, you don't do that. Like, you just don't do that. And yeah, Ebert, yeah, it was Siskel that did. I remember that. And Ebert was really mad at him. Oh, a true acolyte. Yeah, Michael Piller did do the Dead Zone. Yeah. Okay, I am going to wrap up the show because it is after 8:00 over here. But first, I do want to acknowledge at Caitlin's suggestion, thank you, Caitlin, I conducted a poll about the Q&A feature. And apparently the consensus is yes, I should use the Q&A feature in the live chat for you folks to ask questions in the future. So next live stream, I'll do that. I'll turn on the Q&A feature. I think I will wait until after I get through the patron and member questions and then activate the Q&A feature so that I don't have like a huge backlog of questions when I start. But yes, so from now on, we will use the Q&A feature in the chat, since that seems to be the consensus opinion. It's a pretty lopsided vote. It's 71% yes. So let's just call it there. Darth Eddie says, today's the premiere date for Mandalorian and Grogu. I was wondering if your opinions on both the prequels and the sequels have changed. No. My opinion on neither of them have changed. I still don't think the prequels are good, like, at all. And I still think the sequels, the first two sequels are good, and the second sequel, Last Jedi, is one of the best Star Wars movies ever made. My opinion on that, my opinion of that movie has only improved. My regard for that movie has only improved with subsequent viewings. And I still think Force Awakens is fine. It's good. It's a fun movie. Like, it's not a masterpiece, but I would take it over any of the prequels. And Rise of Skywalker is not good, but not nearly as bad as people said it was. Like, the sort of rending of garments and gnashing of teeth over it was overblown, as was the same reaction to like Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. Also not a great movie, but not nearly the, life ruining boondoggle that people acted like it was. But no, my opinions of those movies hasn't changed. No, I still think the prequels are all three terrible movies, and I still think Last Jedi is a goddamn great movie, and Force Awakens is a pretty good movie, and Rise of Skywalker is a bad movie, but not nearly as bad as most people think it is. Anyway, time to wrap up the show. Thank you all so much for the questions, for such interesting questions that I haven't been able to pull myself away from the live chat. But I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to say, if you enjoy these YouTube videos that I do, these live streams and the other pre-recorded or good videos, as I like to think of them, and you would like to help me to continue to do this, you can do that by becoming a supporter of this channel, either by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives and becoming a patron, or by clicking the join button right here on the YouTube channel and becoming a channel member. And if you do that, either of those at any level of support, from $1 a month on up to whatever you feel I'm worth and that you can afford, one of the perks you can take advantage of is you can ask questions for these Ask Away live streams ahead of time. And those are the questions that I answer during the first hour or so of the show. Those are my pre-submitted patron and member questions. So please consider becoming a supporter if you are not already, and if it will not pinch your budget too much. Patreon.com/Steve Shives, or click the join button to become a channel member. If you can only afford $1 a month, that makes a difference. That adds up. $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever you can afford. I'm incredibly grateful and appreciative of it. And if you can't afford anything, that's fine too. That's fine too. I appreciate the fact that you watch, and like click like, share the stream, share the channel, spread the word. If you watch one of my videos that you think is particularly good, share it around. Let other people see it. Leave a comment, click the like button. Like, that stuff makes a difference, and I really appreciate all of that. Also, don't forget, if you enjoy my YouTube stuff, you might also enjoy these podcasts that I do with my very best friend Jason, who was here earlier. I don't know if he's still in the chat or not, or if he fell asleep. Yes, Zulu, you can do both. You can become a patron and a member if you desire. You don't have to. I don't expect that, but yes. And if you become both a patron and a member, you can ask 2 questions in the pre-submitted section if you want. Anyway, I do podcasts with my best friend Jason. They're part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts, and I am on 2 Let Me Listen podcasts. They are Late Seating, the movie review podcast, where Jason and I take a fresh look at classic films and see if whatever reputation they have is the reputation they ought to have in our opinions. Our most recent Late Seating episode is my birthday episode, because Jason and I both have birthdays in this month of May. Mine is early in the month. Jason's is at the end of the month. So for May, we choose the movies ourselves, which we usually don't do. And I picked The Batman, the Robert Pattinson 2022 most recent live action Batman movie. So if you want to hear our review of The Batman, you can listen to our current episode of Late Seating, and our next episode, which will be Jason's birthday movie that we haven't recorded yet, that we'll record weekend after next, is going to be of the Speed Racer movie. That's Jason's pick for his birthday, so that's going to be really cool too. And also, in addition to Late Seating, I also do the Ensign's Log, which is the Star Trek themed comedy podcast, the improv comedy podcast that Jason and I do with our friend Amanda Billings, where the 3 of us play original characters that we have created who exist like in the Star Trek universe, and sort of canonical official Star Trek stuff from the shows is happening in the background while we're having our own adventures as the main thrust of the show. And it's a really fun show. If you like Star Trek, if you like funny Star Trek, if you like sort of satirical Star Trek or shows that kind of spoof and make fun of Star Trek, I think you will enjoy the Ensign's Log. So please, if you have not done so already, check out the Let Me Listen podcast and check out Late Seating and the Ensign's Log. And also, don't forget charitylinks.page. Some random geek was here earlier, and he always likes to remind us of some friends of his and some friends of ours who need a helping hand, financially speaking. If you can afford to help out these friends of ours who just, need some assistance in keeping the bills paid and, paying their necessary expenses for themselves and their families, you can find resources to help those people, GoFundMe's and PayPal links and other such things at charitylinks.page. It is also linked in the video description of this live stream. And if you can help out some friends of ours, we would really appreciate that, because as Dana always says on Wednesdays when she gives you this pitch, helping people is good. All right, I think we're going to call it there. Let me take one final look at the live chat and see if there are any final questions. Cast Iron Chaos says the poll was rigged. Fake news. Yeah, well, the Supreme Court says it wasn't. 255 AD, I have not actually seen the animated versions of Red Son or Injustice. I remember reading the Red Son comic back in the day and thinking it was good, but I haven't seen the animated version. Let's see. Harry Behemoth with the super chat. Thank you, my friend. Says, if you're going to ask for money, you should offer tote bags. You think I have PBS money to be ordering tote bags? And they have to be totes amaze. Thank you, Zulu. Thank you. Joe Dax says, does Steve drink milk? Not lately. I mean, I have in the past. Historically, I have, but not lately. No. So yeah, I think we're going to call it there. All right. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for all the great comments and questions. If you observe Memorial Day, have a good one this weekend. And for all of you, whether you observe Memorial Day or not, whatever your weekend plans may be, have a good night, have a good weekend, and take care of yourselves. Bye, everybody.